Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, Just Simply Sports here with me. I am Kaja. If you're new here, I welcome you. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Whew, you guys, 2025 has been here, officially a week, January 7th, and already it is starting off with a bang. This whole Fox Sports, FS1, Freak Show 1, Freak Off, there's been so many different names I've seen all over social media. It is crazy. Now, before I did a video on this, I saw it yesterday, I wanted to make sure I did my research, so that I can come to you guys with more context. I didn't want to just come on here and just talk, without knowing what I was talking about. Like I always tell you guys, if you're already subscribed, I like to make sure I provide context. You know what I mean? Along with giving my opinion, I'm going to have context behind it. I don't just want to post something to be cool for the algorithm, you guys. That's just what I do here on Just Simply Sports on my channel. So I'm going to start by pulling up some of the pages from this lawsuit. There's 42 pages. If you want to read all the pages, by all means, you can just Google it really quickly and it will pop right up. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read all 42 pages. I'm going to just read a few of the pages. I'm going to play some clips for you guys, and then we can really get into it because this thing is just crazy to me. Crazy. Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, Nusheen Faraji, that is the woman you see on my screen, individually and on behalf of others similarly situated, plaintiff versus Fox Corporation, Delaware Corporation, Fox Sports Holding, LLC, and so on and so forth, right? So look at the other side of the screen. It says a case number, class action complaint, failure to pay minimum wages, failure to pay overtime wages, failure to reimburse business expenses, failure to pay all wages separation, failure to furnish accurate itemized wage statements, unfair, unlawful, or fraudulent business practices. And then you also have her individual complaint, which is where it gets interesting. Sexual battery, hostile work environment, sex, gender, hostile work environment, race, national origin, hostile work environment, disability, failure to prevent harassment, negligent supervision, hiring and retention, retaliation, wrongful termination, demand for jury trial. That is just the first page, you guys. I'm going to go now to page 2. I'm not going to read all of page 2. I'm just going to fast forward now to where it says summary of action. Ms. Faraji brings forth this action because for over a decade at Fox, she was forced to endure a misogynistic, racist, and ableist workplace where executives and talent were allowed to physically and verbally abuse workers with impunity. When Ms. Faraji and others came forward to report the wrongdoing, instead of addressing their concerns, Fox retaliated against them while the perpetrators and those who protected them were inexplicitly promoted. This case thus represents yet another in a long line of cases chronicling the toxic culture at Fox, marked by bad faith promises and repeated failures to address a poisonous and entrenched patriarchy. Okay, you guys, I'm going to now jump to page 5, where Ms. Faraji, she explains how she came to be hired at Fox, who referred her, and also when she started hanging out with Joy Taylor. And she used to be in the company of a man who she didn't know to be Charlie Dixon, but later found out who he was, and just the behavior that she noticed that led her to believe that they were sleeping together. Okay, you guys, go ahead and scroll down to where it says Mr. Dixon gives Miss Taylor undisputed as a reward for having sex with him. In approximately March 2016, Ms. Faraji met Ms. Taylor, an aspiring sports personality that had recently moved from Miami to Los Angeles for the opportunity of airtime at Fox. At the time, Ms. Taylor did not have a regular position but would fill in on a day-to-day basis when talent was sick or otherwise missed time. Ms. Taylor told Ms. Faraji that she was recently wed, but her husband remained in Miami and that she was lonely in Los Angeles. Ms. Taylor then befriended Ms. Faraji. In approximately May 2016, Ms. Taylor asked Ms. Faraji to meet for a drink in Santa Monica. When Ms. Faraji arrived, she found Ms. Taylor with an older man, Fox Sports Executive Vice President of Content, Mr. Dixon. As Executive Vice President, Mr. Dixon is responsible for overseeing all content and production of FS1. Ms. Faraji, however, did not know Mr. Dixon. This is the first time I guess she's meeting him, not knowing who he is. When Mr. Dixon went to buy them another round of spicy margaritas, Ms. Faraji asked who he was. Ms. Taylor responded that he was just a friend. Following that night, whenever Ms. Faraji would meet with Ms. Taylor for drinks or food, Mr. Dixon would either arrive with Ms. Taylor or show up later in the night and leave with Miss Taylor. He would always buy rounds of drinks and or food. From their body language, Miss Faraji suspected that the pair were sleeping with each other, and although this concerned Miss Faraji, as she knew Miss Taylor was recently married, Miss Faraji kept her opinions to herself. Okay, moving along. And approximately June 2016, while at work, Miss Faraji noticed Mr. Dixon in the elevator. Surprised by the coincidence, Miss Faraji found Miss Taylor and told her excitedly, "The guy who always buys his drinks, was in the elevator." Miss Taylor quietly silenced Miss Faraji, explaining who he was. Miss Faraji became alarmed and warned Miss Taylor that such a relationship was unsafe. Miss Taylor told her not to worry about it. Miss Faraji continued to be friends with Miss Taylor, but tried to distance herself as she considered, the situation dangerous as well as morally wrong, as Miss Taylor and Mr. Dixon were both married. Okay, so 23 just talks about the new show that was getting ready to air on FS1 with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Now, going on down to number 24, where it gets even more interesting. Mr. Bayless later told Miss Faraji that he did not want Miss Taylor on the show. Apparently, they were looking for a moderator, and Mr. Dixon recommended Miss Taylor because they were supposedly sleeping together. So he didn't want her on the show, according to what Miss Faraji says he told her. But she says that Mr. Dixon was adamant that Miss Taylor should star. At first, Mr. Dixon arranged a dinner between Mr. Bayless and Miss Taylor, where she arrived in provocative clothing and acted in a provocative manner. When that did not change Mr. Bayless's opinion of Miss Taylor, Mr. Dixon asked him to approve of her as a favor to him. Reluctantly, Mr. Bayless agreed to do so as a favor to his friend. Okay. So around August 2016, Miss Faraji attended a dinner with Miss Taylor and her husband and Mr. Dixon and his wife. During the dinner, Miss Taylor's husband became suspicious that Miss Taylor and Mr. Dixon were having a sexual relationship. Soon after the dinner, Miss Taylor's husband found evidence of the inappropriate relationship and he divorced Miss Taylor. Okay. So now, in approximately September 2016, Undisputed starts. Miss Taylor requested Miss Faraji do her hair, and then so on and so forth. The story goes on. You guys, this is getting really, really juicy and crazy. I will tell you that. And I'm just wondering, how did Miss Faraji know what was going on behind closed doors with Joy Taylor and her husband, and what evidence does she know to be fact that her husband found that later led him to file the divorce? I just find that to be a little bit interesting because I don't think she was there behind those closed doors. I could be wrong though. All right, you guys, I am on page 8. Mr. Dixon gets rid of a female talent member for refusing to have sex with him. Several years into Miss Faraji's tenure at Fox, a female talent member, who remains anonymous, hired Miss Faraji to do her hair at her house for an award show. Anonymous asked that Miss Faraji meet her for lunch first. Then, Anonymous told Miss Faraji that she would no longer be at Fox, as Mr. Dixon told her that she would need to have sex with him if she wanted to renew her contract, but she had refused. Anonymous further conveyed that Mr. Dixon was doing this with other women talent. She should warn Miss Taylor to be careful. A talk show host had recently reported Mr. Dixon. Following a lunch, Miss Faraji called Miss Taylor to convey what Anonymous had stated. Miss Taylor responded that no one gives a flying, okay, I'm adding that in, but no one gives a crap about Anonymous or the talk show host who had reported Mr. Dixon. Miss Faraji later observed that Miss Taylor's remarks appeared accurate as no actions were taken to address the concerns raised. If it was not already apparent, it became even more clear that Fox enabled high-ranking individuals to abuse their authority, exerting undue control over female talent and employees. Fear permeated the workplace as stories of mistreatment circulated. As one example, Mr. Dixon deliberately assigned a female talent member who had been harassed and reported it to a show set up to fail. When the show inevitably failed due to his sabotage, he used its failure as justification to terminate her employment. Another instance, a coworker who frequently cried in the hallway due to relentless sexual harassment was fired just 1 week after reporting it. These repeated incidents reinforced an atmosphere where speaking up seemed futile and dangerous. So I know that was a lot to take in. I did not want to keep you guys here for a 60-minute video, so I just gave you guys a little bit of the backstory, just a few pages. If you want to read all of it, by all means, a quick Google search. You can read all 42 pages. There's a lot of information in there, a lot more details and, receipts, if you want to call it that. So feel free to do your research if you really care to know. I just wanted to make sure that I brought you guys some facts from the actual lawsuit itself. I didn't want to just speak from my opinion, if you will. I like to always lead with integrity here on my page, and not just so much of what I believe in my opinion, but in situations like this where people's character and reputation are at stake, I want to make sure that, I do my due diligence and provide you guys with context here on my channel. So, some of the things that stood out to me, one of the things that stood out to me was that she went out of her way to give details about the relationship that she saw between Joy Taylor and Charlie Dixon. And I'm just wondering why she didn't name the anonymous female talent that she referred to as well. She referred to someone who, anonymous, who got fired or lost her job because she refused to sleep with him and renew her contract. And then she referenced someone else who was also anonymous, who was crying in the hallway due to all the unfair treatment she was receiving there at Fox, right? And this is years into her tenure, not something that happened next month. This is years into her tenure. If you see that Joy Taylor is moving up in the ranks because of her sleeping with the executive, right, who's in charge of, all the content and things like that, why would you go to that person with the allegations? Because for me, I'm not going to trust you with that information. I'm going to go to someone else because I already see what kind of time you want. Remember, you said that you sort of were sleeping together, or you thought they were, and that she also lost her marriage behind the relationship that she was having with Charlie Dixon. So that's someone to me who does not give a damn about anybody else, not even her husband, if she's willing to sacrifice her marriage to move up in life, right? I'm not going to go to you with that kind of information. And if I do, I'm not going to be caught off guard that you are saying, who gives a damn? Because it's obvious you don't. Looking at what you've sacrificed to get to the top and who you're sleeping with, you're not going to side with me, obviously. You're sleeping with the executive and it's working for you. So I'm not going to come to you and expect that you're going to look out for me or help me in any way, shape, or form. That's just me. Now, I like to hear other perspectives. I don't know these people personally. These are just my opinions and what I think based on what I read in that suit. So I'm going to play this clip from Jason Whitlock. I'm not a fan of his, but he knows Joy personally, so I like to always be open-minded and hear other perspectives. I'm going to play this clip from him, and then a quick clip from Stephen A. Smith.
And I don't say this to be hypercritical of Joy Taylor. I don't have harsh opinions of Joy Taylor. She's not someone that I didn't get along with. I basically, for the most part, just kept my distance from Joy Taylor. And I kept my distance not because I didn't like her. It's just because I knew myself. I know myself. I know what I'm capable of. And that big rack of hers that she showed off constantly, it's just, and that peanut butter skin with that big rack, like, Jay, keep your distance. That's going to get you into trouble. And so that's what I did. I kept my distance. Because when you put some woman in a job, talking sports with a bunch of men, it's a job she's not qualified for. She's talking sports with professional athletes, people that did it at the highest level. She's talking sports with me or Colin Cowherd or other people that have like really studied sports at a super high level. What does she have to offer other than her sex appeal? And so should we be surprised that she leaned into that?
Something that really irritates me is when men like Jason Whitlock speak out about women who are not qualified to talk sports with men because they're just pretty, they have big jugs, and they have nothing to offer because they, I guess, haven't played sports. A quick Google search of Jason Whitlock will show that he himself has never played in the NFL or the NBA, yet he's on his channel giving out his opinion on LeBron James and everybody else in sports who play at a high level that he has not. And I'm guessing he's qualified because he played in Division One in college, or because he has a history, in sports media. So if you studied to learn and to be knowledgeable in the sport, that means that an attractive woman can't do the same. Now, I know there are plenty of women who use their femininity and their good looks, their big jugs and peanut butter skin, if you will, to get ahead in life. But that's not everyone. That's not everyone. There are plenty of men I see who have sports channels who speak on things that they don't seem qualified to speak on, and yet they're still there. So to me, I'm tired of hearing men speak down on women because they're simply a woman and they shouldn't be talking about sports because you're a man and only men can do that. Anybody, if you really want to do something, you want to be successful at it, like something like sports, you can study your ass off. You can read, you can watch film, you can watch tape. There are plenty of ways to become knowledgeable about sports from the perspective of journalism. You're not going to have the same perspective as someone who actually played the sport because you never played it. That's man or woman. But there are so many channels and pages now from former athletes, some who only got as far as D1 in college, some who were third string in the NFL, who simply got a championship ring because they were on the team, but they didn't really contribute to the success of the team at all. So when you watch a show, for example, like The Facility, and you have someone like Chase Daniel speaking on quarterbacks, and he was like, I believe, a third string quarterback, should we tell him that his experience and what he went through, what he learned throughout the tenure of his career, I believe it was 12 years plus, being a backup, he was still in the NFL. So should we tell him you shouldn't be on this kind of show because you were not Tom Brady, because you're not Patrick Mahomes? I'm just trying to figure out in what capacity do we allow people to speak about sports because it's becoming kind of nitpicky. Now, when you think about, like, for example, I don't know if you guys watch Gil's Arena, right? Gil was talking to Nick Young, and it was a big debate about what it takes to be a championship contender. And Gil has never won NBA, championship ring. Nick Young did, but he was saying Nick Young didn't really contribute to winning. So that was a whole big debate. Nevertheless, you see some of the comments like, Gil, you never won anything. You should be quiet. And then you have some who are like, well, you got a ring, but you didn't really contribute. That was Steph Curry and so on and so forth. So we can go back and forth all day about whether or not you should be speaking on something because you didn't win a ring, or if you did win a ring, you weren't contributing to success, all these different things. But it all comes back to we all have opinions. And I just hate when we discredit and talk down on people because they're a woman or because they haven't won, even if they did play at a high level. Like, anybody can give their opinion, anybody can do research, anybody can become knowledgeable. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't make Jason Whitlock, to me, is not more qualified than Amina Kimes, if you want to go by that, because you didn't play either. Neither one of you played. You both studied.
I don't know what happened. But just like I said, I've known Jay-Z for 25 years. I can't imagine that. I've known Skip for just as long. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. Especially when they brought up the $1.5 million. The Skip Bayless I know has a hard time giving away $15. He's one of the cheapest people I know. That's just me. But that doesn't mean that I have any inside knowledge about any of this. I don't, and I'm not going to get involved. I think it's incredibly dicey and irresponsible for people who don't know to act like they do know. But in the same breath, I also feel it's important that if you know people or you think you know people and you've had a long-standing relationship with those people, that it's not a crime for you to say the person that I know, the person that I've been around, the person that I worked with in his case, for 4 straight years from 2012 to 2016, doing First Take every weekday morning at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The person that I knew since our days at Fox Sports when we would appear on Jim Rome's show.
Now, back to this whole case, to wrap this whole thing up, you guys. Like I said, I don't want to keep you here for 10 hours. I'm glad that Stephen A. Smith has spoken up for Skip Bayless. I don't know him, but I think it's really sad when people sometimes come under scrutiny in the media and allegations come out, and people that know them, when they have something good they can say, they're quiet. But when something bad is said, everybody comes out and jumps on that bandwagon. You never know what anyone's capable of, right? There's none of us. I will say that I'm glad that he spoke to the person that he knew, who he worked with. The person that I knew was cheap. He wouldn't even want to give up $15, let alone 1.5 million. And that is a lot of money to be offering someone to sleep with you when there are plenty of women who would do it for free. Just saying. Doesn't mean it's not true though. I'm just saying 1.5 million is a lot of money to, try to get someone to get in bed with you. Nevertheless, sometimes we know people, right, as we know them, but somebody else can know them in a completely different capacity, completely different light. I'll use Diddy, for example, and everything that he's going through, right? You have Diddy, the baby oil, the freak offs, the man who beat on Cassie in that video, but then you see his kids, right? And they know him as a completely different person. there's like two different sides of him. There's the music mogul, and then there's the freaky side, if you want to call it that, of Diddy, right? So two things can be true. Who I know to be a good person, who I know to be a cheap person, doesn't mean that maybe on the side he was doing something different. I'm just speaking on who I know. And I think people should speak on the person that they know if it's in a good light. I don't know that person to be like that. It doesn't mean that you don't. I'm just telling you who I know, and I'm speaking on that.
Unfortunately, Stephen, in this world that we live in, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I left the sports industry initially, because I felt like people were flirting with me and not taking my perspective or my preparation seriously when I would show up to interview them, because it's hard to get past your looks. And as you saw, she's an absolutely beautiful woman, you know? So that's just, the unfortunate reality that the sports world is that world, but it's not just in sports, it's in news too. So, yeah.
You know, a lot was said from Stephen A. Smith, a lot was said from Jason Whitlock, a lot was said from Stephen A. Smith. He has it seems to be a new co-host of some sort, Tori Craig, on his show. She gave her perspective. And I feel like when you're in a male-dominated industry, especially if you are attractive, there's always going to be someone who tries to sleep with you, someone who tries to use their position of power, authority to try to leverage, you into doing something you may not want to do. It's up to you as a person to go for it or say, no, I'm good, and just deal with whatever comes with those consequences of turning down a powerful man. Men have their ego and things of that nature. But nevertheless, anytime you see a woman who's attractive, it's, especially in the media, it's always deemed she slept with somebody to get to way to the top. I don't understand why that narrative is always placed with someone who is attractive. You don't really hear about anybody who's not the most attractive or unattractive, if you want to word it that, in these situations. There's always somebody who has nice teeth, big boobs, or a big butt, however you want to word it. And it's because you're pretty, that means you have nothing to offer other than your sexuality. It's impossible that you have a degree in journalism. It's impossible for you to be knowledgeable in the sport. That narrative, to me, what needs to stop. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. Now, Joy Taylor specifically, I do not know her at all. I just see her on television. I know that her brother played, I believe, in the NFL. So she may have a different kind of knowledge or experience about the sport from her perspective, watching what her brother went through and, being a part of his journey. You know what I mean? So for me, when I watch her speak, I don't get someone who's just pretty and ditzy, just talking along, moderating the show, if you will. I think she does better than Paul Pierce, especially when it comes to football. Personally, although Paul Pierce, has gotten more knowledgeable as the show has gone on. At first, basketball was just his thing, having played for the Celtics, right? But nevertheless, you guys, I said that to say there's a lot to take away from this subject. We can go on and on. I implore you guys to do your own research, have your own opinions. Don't just take mine. You know what I mean? And I know that this conversation will probably be going on for a few days now because this lawsuit is fresh. There's a lot that's coming out. And I'm curious to see if more women will come and speak forward and back Nasheen Faraji's allegations about what they went through at Fox Sports with specifically Skip Bayless and Charlie Dixon. When things like this happen, it's always like a domino effect. You find everybody coming out the woodworks from 1975, 1922, and everything else about what happened with them. And I guess we'll have to see, but no matter what, whether this is true or it's not true, your credibility, your reputation has been shot. And that's why I don't like to necessarily just jump on a bandwagon or believe in anyone. I don't care if you're a man, I don't care if you're a woman, I don't care if you're black or white. I like to do research first before I make an informed opinion and seeing what happens and how things come full circle. Because you don't get a chance to redo your reputation. Once something is out there, be it true or not, it's already out there. And like Tori Craig said, now when you Google Skip Bayless, forget about everything else that he's done in the sports media world. It's going to come up with these allegations of sexual assault and offering $1.5 million for someone to sleep with him. And that's just going to be where it stops. We're going to kind of forget everything else that he did in sports media, which is really, really sad. You know what I mean? And now, whether or not Joy did sleep her way to the top, or she didn't, who knows? Every time she does a show now, or she moves on to a different show, it's going to be, oh, she slept with that one, slept with this one. It's absolutely crazy how things can just come out and just shatter your reputation, and then that just be it. But what do you guys think, though? I'm curious to read your comments and read your thoughts. I look forward to it. I will respond as best as I can, and have a great day.